Welcome to another episode of the Online Prosperity Experience podcast. You're about to hear your host, Prosper Taravinga's powerful digital marketing strategies and actionable tactics that you can use right now. Prosper has helped more than 50,000 people from over 10 countries to create meaningful businesses that are profitable and enjoyable. Listen to this podcast so that you too can build your own business with less stress and overwhelm. Let's get started.
How to turn everyday situations into your content idea inspirations. Now, I got a question for you. Do you know why people actually come to the internet? Or do you know why you come to the internet yourself? Right. So there was a poll that was done earlier on, and it came out with three distinct categories why people actually come to the internet. The first one is people come to the internet to get entertainment. The second one is people come for information. And the third and final one is people come to the internet to shop. Okay. So basically, if people are seeing your content or coming to the internet, they want to learn from you. So your role as a coach, consultant, or small business owner is to engage that audience, educate them, and inspire them to want more, be more, and have more. And in the process, obviously, you can then sell them your consulting, your training, your information, your expertise, and whatever paid speaking gigs that you might have. But it's not easy to constantly come up with this fresh content that people love to engage with. And you might be asking yourself, why do I need to be doing that when the internet is already filled up with all the content that anyone might need? Well, let me tell you something. If you're the person that's providing any of this information to your audience, guess what happens? People get to know, like, and trust you. And we all know that people do business with those that they know, like, and trust. So if you're not putting out content there, then that means you're missing out on an opportunity to actually engage with the right kind of people, with the right kind of pain with the products or services that you are bringing into the marketplace. And obviously, like I said, if you're providing this information that helps your audience solve a problem which they're having, they'll really appreciate that, and they'll start to trust you a whole lot more, and it increases the chances of them buying from you. And we all know that trust takes time. So if you're going to use content to be creating trust, that means you have to be creating a whole lot of it. So like I keep reiterating, you need to engage, then educate, and then build quality relationships with them at multiple stages of your marketing funnel before they're even willing to actually convert and take any action that you want them to take. And we also have a rule within our business. I'm not quite sure if you're well versed with what I do. We're a digital agency, and we help small to medium businesses automate their lead generation processes so that they never have to wonder ever again where their leads are going to be coming from. And that's the reason why I show up every single day on this podcast. And it's simply because I have one rule within my business, which is I do not pitch until I've provided enough value. All right. I've given enough value that the person who's receiving it is like, wow, if this person is giving us all this information for free, I can only wonder what sort of content will be behind a paid gateway or a wall, you know what I mean? Or if I have to pay for this. So by doing this, we don't have to start explaining ourselves. And if you adopt this attitude, you don't have to explain yourself at all. Because I use this podcast as a way to answer questions that my potential clients might have. And I use it as an excuse to send emails to my audience saying, hey, listen, I've created something new that you might want to check out. And it's every time that I'm doing this, it's different. It's more value because I viscerally believe we get paid in direct proportion to the value that we bring to the marketplace. So How much time would you save if you never have to explain yourself again? And, when you're talking to people that you know, like, and trust you, converting them will be much, much easier. And I'm sure that this will actually, make a huge difference to your marketing efforts and will give you a big return on your investment. And the second, you start showing up, with value, people actually start respecting everything that you've got to say, and obviously give you the benefit of the doubt. Now, how do you then consistently churn out all this content, and how do you make sure that it's relevant and it's actually working, in favor of you? Especially when it comes to an audience that's constantly receiving marketing messages out there. And how do you actually compete with other people that are good at other medias, and that make your kind of work that you put out there like crayons that have been done by a kid in kindergarten? I can understand your biggest problem as an entrepreneur, coach, or consultant is marketing is just one aspect of running a successful business. You're hiring new staff, you're balancing books, and you're driving growth and a whole lot more. And it feels like it's a constant balancing act where you're pulled in multiple different directions all at once. And at the end of the day, your real goal is just to help your clients, and you want to spend as much time as possible changing people's lives and solving people's problems, and you don't want to waste countless hours each week trying to navigate the complex world of online marketing or content creation. And you certainly don't want to spend yet another minute on the phone having to beg people to hire your services or to buy from you. Unfortunately, you don't have to. I don't, because I show up every single day at my own time and at my own prescribed methods, to create for and relate to the audience that I'm going to be demanding money off of. And it's not because I'm a genius. It's just because I turn everyday situations to my greatest inspirations. Okay? You see, half of the time people always ask me, how do you come up with all this content, that you generate podcasts from, and how do I, manage to stay consistent without running out of things to say, So in this podcast, I'm just going to give you an overview of all the different ways and sources which actually inspire me and allow me to get outside my head and come up with new ideas. One thing that you might be surprised about is, if you want new content, talk to strangers. Talk to people that don't know who you are. Talk to people that have never heard of you, and just strike up conversations, and you'll be surprised as to what it is that comes out of all the conversations that you might have. And these strangers might be somebody on a bus, or you could talk to, a newly connected person on LinkedIn, or somebody you just connected with on social media. Just have conversations with strangers. But I also have a confession when it comes to this aspect, because I actually hate talking to people I don't know, because half of the time, we're just coming out of a pandemic. You don't know what side of the table anybody is on and how to start a conversation, etc. You know what I mean? So I just wait until people start talking, and then I can then gauge which side they might be. And it's usually difficult because some people are not into small talk, or their small talk is just way too trivial that it's very mind-numbing to actually converse with them. But how am I going to get ideas if I don't talk to people that I don't know? Because if I just keep talking to people that I know, guess what happens? I just have the same idea pool that I can constantly, fish from, and sooner or later I won't have any new ideas coming in. So most people that actually know me fairly well are surprised by this, because they're like, wait a minute, you're on podcasts, you're speaking to people all the time. Yeah, that's a controlled environment, and that's a scheduled conversation. And obviously I would have been a little bit prepared, and when I show up to conversations like that, and they're actually surprised that I hate, talking to people that I know, because, it seems like I have no problem talking to large groups, of people, and just talking in general. Who would have a podcast if they had a problem talking to people? But there's something about making conversation with people that I don't know that actually scares me. And however, I've actually learned that it's perfectly fine to be nervous, that, I can easily overcome that fear just by taking action and controlling the conversation, just like everything else in life, And when I realized how much value I could actually be getting, by talking to as many people as I could each and every day, I was hooked. So instead of maybe staring at my phone or just waiting in line where, there's a lot of lines in Melbourne, or ignoring the guy sitting next to me at a seminar, or, if I go at soccer practice or I'm waiting for my kids at school, I just strike up a conversation. And you know what the biggest secret is? Be a better listener than a talker. And then you really get to understand a lot more about the world around you based on the conversations that you have with strangers. And for you to really grow, aspiring innovators, need to forget that bad piece of advice that you might have heard from your childhood that never talk to strangers. Because how else are you going to meet your spouse? How else are you going to meet, your investors? Or how else are you going to meet your next client? Because each and every one of those people was once a stranger. Okay, so open yourself up, talk to people, find out what makes them tick, and then you will get to understand a lot more about how you can position yourself and how you can actually help other people by actually helping them. And one other thing that also, strikes up a lot of ideas is taking a walk. All right. My mentor often told me that move a muscle and change a thought. Okay. Because if you're not moving, then your brain is not accessing different information. You're just, exposing your brain to the stimuli that is around you, and you're not going to different places. It's just like, because when you walk and you wander, you find things in your area that you never knew existed, and you could actually start making sense of the world around you, and that creates fodder for content. If anything, you could just take a selfie from that, and then you can then maybe use it a little bit later on to explain a point, or to actually just showcase to people that, what is around you, okay? And it actually makes taking a walk is such an amazing way to get your brain flowing, because your brain is on alert. You are in environments that you might not be familiar with. So obviously your brain is very alert and it's looking out for, new information that it hasn't deciphered yet. And it doesn't matter if it's cold, it's rainy, or it's snowy, or doing anything else out there. That makes it a whole different. And once you start walking, you then come across those strangers that we mentioned earlier on, and you can ignite or initiate some conversations with them. And when it was during COVID time, I used to take my family around on a walk around our neighborhood, and we got to explore a lot more places that we wouldn't have had we not gone through these walks. So a walk takes me away from everything, and at the same time it puts you exactly where you need to be. Okay, so for a start, walking gets you away from your desk, it gets you away from your screen, and it gets you away from your formal strictness of what you call work, and it allows you to plan things out in your head according to maybe just a gentle, slow rhythm of your body or your feet pacing across some sort of a landscape. And you could walk along the beach, you could meet a dog, or you could meet new people, strike a conversation, and then it just now becomes a whole different day for you. You know what I mean? And try and take as many photos as possible, and put your phone in airplane mode so that you don't get to be distracted while you are busy walking out there. Okay. And there's also one other thing that I've also noticed: when you get to walk, you can find a park bench or some sort of place where you've never sat before, and just sit there. And half of the time, even if you don't meditate, you can just really bring your thoughts together, and you might have ideas that you never thought existed. And if you want to, you can actually meditate. I meditate every morning for at least 10 minutes, and I've been doing maybe 15 minutes for the last few weeks. But there's a couple of days where I do maybe a little bit longer. But just sitting down with your thoughts and then just resting your mind, because your mind is on it's on overdrive all the time. You're always thinking of the next thing. And if you just stop and really appreciate and just be grateful for where you are and what it is that you're doing, you might notice that if you had a pending project that needed an answer, you might just find that answer coming your way. So meditation is actually a doorway between maybe your inner world and your outer world, and it allows your hidden creativity to come to the surface in a very powerful way, because your brain is always operating at maybe three distinct levels. The surface level, which is maybe your intellect and your ego mind, and then you've got the deep and emotional intuitive, where you get all the answers, and then beyond imaginative, that's where you get the inspirational mind. And meditation really gives you the benefits of working between those minds, whereas if you're just sitting and you're maybe making conversations, you only work with the surface mind, which basically is just your ego. All right, so meditation is something that I softly fought against for quite some time, because I didn't know how much it was actually helping me and how to actually do it. And I didn't believe that something so simple could actually be so profound and impact my life. I used to do affirmations and everything else, but ever since I discovered, just sitting down and just collecting your thoughts and then just letting every thought come through in your head, it's one of the greatest benefits that you could actually do for yourself. And one of its greatest benefits has been the abundance of maybe ideas that come to me during the times of when you're just, meditating and relaxing there, and while you're doing that, you could use that opportunity to visualize, okay? Because half of the time, if you've got ideas permeating in your head, all you just got to do is see yourself actually achieving the things that you're working towards, So for me, sometimes after I'm done meditating in the morning, I probably have, a written out plan of what I want the day to look like. And I spend some time visualizing and then what I'm going to do and how the day is going to turn out. And then eventually all you now are doing is mapping out and strategically living your day through, a visual aspect, so that when it does come to living through those motions in your day, it's like a rehearsal, right? So I actually spend about 3 minutes, just visualizing what I want, my day to look like, my life to look like, my kids' life to look like. And in the process, I also get ideas of what it is that I should be doing, for the day. And it just becomes very intuitive. And by letting, my mind go free, usually, and thinking about good things to come, and those things that have probably already happened in my life, I'm able to actually completely remove maybe any negative thoughts that might be holding my creativity back, because your brain does not think creatively when you are surrounded with negativity, because your brain wants to get rid of that negativity first, and once you get rid of that negativity, that's when it gets into the creative space. So when I practice visualization throughout the day, every day, I just get so creative, and I think it was Mark Schuster who says, as a practitioner of creativity rather than as an instructor of it, I'm certain that there are many ways to get creative juices flowing, and how to release more creativity, just by sitting there and visualizing everything else as if it has already happened. All right. And more to do with yourself, this whole meditation and visualization. Half of the time, we can also get our information from other people, because I viscerally believe that we're here to live, we're here to learn, and we're here to contribute. All right. So to live the best lives, we have to learn from our own mistakes and other people's mistakes, and then we have to contribute those lessons to others that might not have gotten the opportunity to learn all about those mistakes. So that's why you need to network with other individuals or like-minded people and get ideas of how they are actually navigating the world around them, or making sense of their businesses or environments around them. Okay, you see, I come up with a lot of ideas each day, and that's the reason why I never run out of content. But some of them are awesome, and some of them they're half baked, or maybe they're not as good, or they might need somebody else to help them come to fruition. And my solution to that is I try to share as many of these ideas with other people, because you never know what resources other people have that might actually help you bring those ideas to life. So obviously, with those strangers that I meet every single day, I meet and I talk to loads of people, and I'm always reaching out to new people on LinkedIn just to say, hey, let's have a chat. Let's see, can collaborate with our synergies and see what we can come up with. And half of the time, some people might, be surprised with all the ideas that I come up with, pertaining to their business and how they can be profitable and also enjoy. And also, I appreciate the ideas that people bring my way, because I think it was the Dalai Lama that says, share your knowledge. It is a way to achieve immortality. Because when you share information with other people, what you have shared, if it goes out and gets implemented, guess what? That time that you have spent sharing that idea is now written in stone. Okay, it is now etched in people's memories, because it was because of that conversation that you had with them that they now went out and maybe made something of their life. So I started doing this a whole lot more, because, I really love helping people. But as soon as I realized that, people would start sharing their ideas with me as well, it became, a reciprocal sort of endeavor. And you start maybe looking at other people's ideas that they cannot implement themselves. And then you can actually formulate partnerships or some sort of synergies, just simply because you may have the resources or the wherewithal to actually implement those ideas. So you see, it's most it's in most people's nature, unless you're a psychopath, to want to help others, and it's what gives us fulfillment and purpose in life. And that's why I said we're here to live, we're here to learn, and we're here to contribute. So if you can actually find other people that you can contribute and collaborate ideas with, you will notice that you'll be able to grow faster and do a whole lot more with the little that you have. And if you can't find people in your area, just travel. Just go somewhere and meet strangers. Like I keep saying, there's power in just going outside of your comfort zone. Because most people that I know tell me that they hate maybe the Melbourne, travel, or some people in New York, they hate the subway. I absolutely love public transport, not just because it gets you, from point A to point B without having to worry about traffic in the city, but because, I have some of my best thoughts and ideas while I'm traveling, or I get to meet some of the, remarkable people that, might change the course of my life through traveling. So I used to spend a lot of time, trying to occupy my mind, with a lot of reading, etc. You know what I mean? Because I always thought I needed more information, but now that I've got all this information in my head, the only best thing I can do is try and talk to other people and decipher that information and actually make sense, of the world around me based on the information that I now have, But now I just sit in silence and I observe. Maybe I do a light meditation, or I just soak everything around me. What are people wearing? How do they talk to each other? How do they connect? One other thing that I also do is, how do people connect with their phones? I look at what people, I know it's rude or it's disrespectful, but I want to see how people connect with their phones. How do they consume content, and what sort of content are they consuming? Are they reading blogs? Are they reading, TikToks, or are they watching videos or listening to podcasts? And then that just gives me a frame of reference when I'm sitting here in my office and I'm doing this podcast, because now I know I've got an idea of the person that I might be creating this podcast for. So I look at different people, observe what they're doing, what are they reading, what are they playing, and how are they communicating with other people. And I look at different advertisements that they interact with, and I listen to what people are saying. All of this just helps me to see things and think about stuff that I normally wouldn't be able to do. So Obviously, maybe you might not be living in the city like I do, or you live in a place where you don't have public transport. There's so many other options that you could do this for. You could go to a museum in your area. You could go on a bus, on a train. You could be a passenger in an Uber. You could fly on a plane or on a boat or on a ferry. Anything where you can have the focus, where you don't have to be the person who's driving or steering the wheel, and then just simply sit back and observe life. It's called people watching. Or you can go to a shopping mall and just watch how people engage with brands and themselves, and how they actually communicate with other people, etc. It will definitely help you as a coach, consultant, and small business owner to just observe everyday frustrations. And speaking of everyday frustration, some people might not realize that some apps don't actually work, or maybe some websites don't actually, you can't click onto something or scroll or whatever it is. How are you going to know all of those things if you're not out there observing people? Okay. I've noticed something that has actually helped me in so many years. My mind wants me to be annoyed at a lot of things. It's quite funny. I used to, this used to result in me actually getting annoyed. But, I've worked hard to flip that and accept that everyday frustrations are actually business ideas. And that's how entrepreneurship works, because we are here to solve problems. You know what I mean? If somebody cuts you in line, or or gets in front of you, in at Subway or whatever it is, it makes you realize that there's a need, or there's people like that are going through that in life that need a solution to whatever that problem is. And once I became okay with these things, I realized that these minor frustrations, in mine and other people's lives, were actually small gifts, because they actually helped me to once again see things differently and try and find a solution to that problem. Now I just wait and observe. Whenever I think I hear somebody say something like this, oh, I wish this was done, or I wish they could say it this way. Or if you're out there and then they say, oh, I love that place, they would do so much better if they would clean it up, or if they would have virtual tours, and all those ideas that people might have of how things might work better. Because in my experience, growth typically comes from pain. All right. So by acknowledging and embracing pain, you can actually uncover some really amazing inspiration. And basically, at the end of the day, you will actually start creating solutions that people never thought existed, just simply by listening to people, going out there and communicating to strangers, and just people watching. You will get ideas, first of all, for your content, and then ideas for business. And you will definitely start creating more things that are wanted out there in the marketplace. Okay. So, and while you're out there, it's more imperative for you to be listening and be present, instead of you just going through the motion. The most meaningful and life-changing advice that I've ever received in my life is also the simplest. Okay. It's also usually the hardest to implement once you do. Now, things are never the same if you start listening. I've often been told to really listen to people, and I've often heard things like, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so use them proportionally. So, I've worked hard and, on really being present and listening to people when we talk. Because at the end of the day, like, I've realized, the more you listen, the more you actually have ideas. Even when your customers are complaining, listen to what they're saying instead of being defensive. And the more you listen, the more you would actually get the results that they're looking for. Not only does it build deeper and meaningful relationships, but it actually opens you up to a world of possibilities. And, you find out how you can actually make other people's lives better. All right. And once you can make other people's lives better, people will pay you, to continuously do that. And this is one of the greatest triggers to ideas and innovation. And the more you are hungry to listen to other people, and you're always wanting to be there and to be present for other people, you will definitely improve a lot of things in people's lives. And when people talk, you listen completely, because most people never listen. Have you ever spoken to somebody and then you feel like they're just waiting for you to finish your sentence so that they can have a word in? Yeah, I have that a lot. But let me tell you something. Just you'll be amazed, right? Where the things that you hear when you actually stop to listen. All right. So if you notice, half of the things that I'm speaking about, it has a lot to do with you and how you interact, with your day, the people you meet, and you could create a lot of content and be inspired to be more, do more, and have more. Okay. Inspiration doesn't always lie within. All right. Sometimes we have to remember to exhale, just so we can breathe. That may sound crazy, but it actually just makes sense. When we let go of our old habits, preconceived notions, and other limiting beliefs, we actually open up ourselves to a whole new realm of new possibilities, because human nature uses communication to change our mindset and to actually force us to think outside of our comfort zone. All right. So how refreshing would it be if you are always coming up with new ideas, and you're always being the one person that people resort to, for new and improved ideas, and you being the person that is a coach, consultant, or a small business owner that people can actually rely on. Okay. With that said, I'm all for some quality time to go and learn some stuff with my kids. Maybe we're gonna go for a walk or something like that. But never forget that we're here to live, we're here to learn, and we're here to contribute. And the more you come up with different ideas and different ways of dealing with life, the more you will have a business that's profitable and enjoyable. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions, let's continue the conversation in the Live Long Digital community. Become a Live Long Digital community member today. This community is for ambitious entrepreneurs and small business owners with the drive to take control of the future of their businesses and achieve huge success without stress and overwhelm. As you heard, Prosper can help you by teaching you marketing strategies that work. So look no further than the Live Long Digital community of entrepreneurs and highly successful business owners. Join our community today. Find us on www.community.livelongdigital.com.au. Network with other driven entrepreneurs and find the expert guidance you need to take your business to the next level. www.community.livelongdigital.com.au